Hello and welcome to Entrusted. I'm Susan Yerkowitz. It is an honor to have you join us. If you're new, what a privilege. I'm so glad that you're here. This is the podcast where we talk with different people about how they're using their talents for the good of the world. We have got an exciting episode for you tonight. I'm just very excited. The guest that we have coming on, I'm really excited because I also am going to be learning as you are learning. I've heard much about this young lady and just how open she is to God's call in her life. And she has done some pretty major changes over her career. So her name is Marielle Lafaro. I'd like to welcome you to the show. Welcome, Marielle.
Hi,
Hello.
thanks so much for having me.
Oh, of course. It's an honor to have you here. So, I want to let you kind of share the story. What's keeping you busy these days? What would you say that you have been actively doing?
Well, that's a big question to start with. So right now, the irons are working in EMS, so working on the ambulance, loving it. I'm actually currently taking classes to get what's called CPE credits. So it's clinical CPE credits, clinical pastoral education. So I am discerning becoming a chaplain. I'm not sure exactly where that's going to go yet. I'm going to let the Holy Spirit decide that. He's the planner. We can talk about that. So I'm doing that online and it's fantastic. I'm loving it. Yeah. And just got done with a few fun animal rescues for the summertime. Maybe I'll have some more. We'll see. And getting ready for the canonization, like probably most of us are, very excited about that. We're actually going to head to Chicago for that. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, just to find a bigger celebration than we have here. Honestly, it's a compromise. We're not going to Rome. We would I'd like to, but so doing all that and a few other things.
sure. So, what Marielle is talking about, for those of you that aren't aware, the canonization, we have a couple of blesseds that Pope Leo will be canonizing as saints. We have Blessed Carlo Acutis and Blessed, why don't you help me with the name? Pierre.
Pier Giorgio Frassati.
Yes. Are these favorites of yours?
Oh, he is. Yes. I've been
Yeah.
waiting for this. I mean,
Oh,
everybody loves Blessed Carlo. Actually, there's nine of them. There's nine blesseds.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Isn't
wasn't
that cool?
aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
That
because
is
Carlo's kind of getting the spotlight, taking a
because
lot
he's
of that.
young.
Oh, it's so exciting. It's so exciting. But I am a Pier Giorgio person through and through. My students used to tease me and they'd be like, that's Miss, I taught theology, I taught religion at a Catholic school, middle school. So of course they were like, that's Miss Lafaro's crush saint. And I'm
Oh,
like, you're probably not wrong about that. So yeah, they would like to tease me about that. And it was just great. So lots of Pier Giorgio, lots of Pier Giorgio fans. And
yeah.
really excited about this.
That's fantastic. So where did you say you're going? Chicago.
We are going to Chicago. Yeah. So actually,
Okay.
I'm starting. My boyfriend and I, we are going to South Bend and we
Okay.
are visiting one of my favorite human beings on planet Earth. Some people here might know him, Father Edward Krause. And
Ah,
yeah, he's a Notre Dame priest. He taught at Gannon. He was in Erie for many years. He taught at Gannon, and I just love him. And so years ago, he went back to Notre Dame to be with his community. So I try to go see him every year, maybe every couple years. So we're going to stop there and have a visit with him and his brother. And then we're going to head to Chicago and find the canonization festivities going on.
that is exciting.
Isn't it
Wow.
fun?
That
Yeah.
is fun. That
Isn't
is.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned quite a few irons, as you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear how all of these, and maybe they don't tie together. But I'd love to hear, maybe you could share your story. What's led you to this point? You mentioned you were an elementary education teacher.
Yeah.
So
So
please fill us
much.
in a little bit. How did you get to
Okay.
this place in your life?
Well, very unexpectedly. Every step of this has been completely unexpected. I grew up in a Catholic household. My father, Dr. Joseph Lafaro, he taught at Gannon. He was a philosophy professor. Very much, he and my mother always esteemed higher education. It was just a given that my five siblings, well, my four siblings and I'm the fifth, would be going to college, would be going to Gannon. And so we were raised Catholic and kind of just did the Catholic thing, not caring that much, of course, because you're a kid and you just kind of go along with it. So I went to Gannon, and for quite a while I had no idea what I wanted to do, because in fact I wanted to do everything, and that's still, I guess, a theme in my life. Wanted to do everything. Ended up getting one of my bachelor degrees in foreign languages because I knew I loved that. My mom was always into languages, and so I studied Spanish, and my secondary language was French. And then I pulled in a second degree because I was just really loving college and education. So I ended up there for 6 years, and I got a second bachelor's in psychology. And so 6 years later, and I graduate, and I had a bit of a crisis because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went down to Texas, Houston, to the Houston Catholic Worker for half a year, and I volunteered with them. And it was fantastic. Yeah, super intense.
Did you say the Catholic Worker?
Yep.
Like
the Houston,
Dorothy
Yep, Dorothy Day. Yep.
Dorothy Day, really? Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a big Catholic Worker in Houston, and they deal primarily with immigrants. And so we had a women's house, and we had a men's house, and we had a clinic, and it's a very busy place. They have a publication. So I lived there with them, like I said, for about half a year, and extremely hard to leave home. Really, really, really hard. I was very, very heartsick, but I knew that was where it was supposed to be. And it was kind of a great just segue into the rest of my life. So I learned a lot there and loved it, and came back, and kind of that's when the crisis kicked in a little bit more, because it was like, okay, it's serious time. What are we doing? And I didn't know. So I went on the Dorothy Day retreat, Encounter with Silence.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a week-long silent retreat. Magnificent. Yeah. And so this was actually a retreat that she would go to. And obviously, having just come from the Catholic Worker, we spoke about that a lot. We read a lot of Dorothy Day. And this is going back. So I went to that retreat, and it was really beautiful timing, because a week long of silence, for as much as I love to talk, I really, really love that silence. And my prayer was just, Lord, just show what are we going to do? What am I doing here? I have no idea. And it was absolutely in that silence that he revealed to me, almost kind of through a question and answer during prayer, mainly like his questioning, which was really interesting, kind of change of roles from what you expect. And his question to me, I remember, was, what is most life-giving to you? And, after praying in silence about this, I just realized what's most life-giving to me is talking to young people about their faith. And there it was. I wanted to teach religion. I want to teach Catholicism, which is great, because now you have an answer, except I just got done with 6 years of college and 2 degrees that are not education, and they're not theology. I mean, I took a lot of theology, but so I came home with this new inspiration and this new plan, and no idea what to do with that. So I actually met with a representative of the diocese, and I said, what do I do? And she was super helpful. She's still a friend. And she said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You need your certification. And obviously there's no teaching certification, state certification in religion. Get it in something you have, and the Catholic schools will almost certainly accept a certification, accept you if you're certified, even though it's not in religion. She said, so you have Spanish, that's your big thing. So I went back to college for year seven and a half. So it was a year and a half program. I went to Mercyhurst and got my postgraduate secondary education certification in Spanish. And yeah, so then I started subbing in the Catholic schools, and substitute teaching is no joke. Props to anybody who substitute teaches. It's a hard, I loved it, but it is a difficult job. And anybody who ever tells me that they're subbing, I'm like, God bless. That's not an easy job. So I was subbing for a while, and I subbed at the cathedral, and that was great. And I subbed at St. George, and the teacher there, the religion teacher, 7th and 8th grade, I was like, and I loved her, and she was great. And I'm like, man, this is my dream job someday. And so then summer came, and summer was coming to an end, and I was contacted by the principal of St. George School, and he said, this teacher is no longer here, and we would like you for this dream position you had. And
Wow.
Yeah, totally chickened out. I told him, oh, absolutely. It's kind of been the story of my life. Like I just didn't feel like I was prepared.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so I told him, can I pray about this? I happen to be going to Ukraine. Like the next, I think it was I'm telling you that the one thing that unites this whole story is just randomness. I was going to Ukraine. I think it was the next day. Maybe it was in 2 days when he called me. I'm telling you, this is
Wow.
maybe early August, late July.
I was going to ask for a little context. What year approximately?
That was 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. So while I was at Mercyhurst, I was in that beautiful chapel there, university.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get a chance to see it, if you haven't, everybody should go see that. And there was on the back of one of the bulletins, there was an announcement about volunteering in Ukraine with the country's only Catholic university in Lviv, and it was volunteer teaching English. It was an immersion camp, so actually I think it was probably about 5 weeks. I was going to be there, and I'm like, sign me up. So it was.
Now, had you been subbing before you saw this?
I had been subbing before I saw that. Correct. Okay. And that's, sorry if I'm a little disjointed. That's how that's how the principal knew who I was.
Got it. Okay.
Because I'd been subbing at the school.
Okay.
And it was summer vacation, so I wasn't subbing. I was doing, odds and end job, whatever, and saw this and said, sign me up, Ukraine, let's go. Zero Ukrainian. And he called me like a day or two before I was going to, Eastern Europe for, I think it was 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, to go teach, seminarians actually, and
really?
college. Yeah. The Catholic school there hooked up with the seminary, and they wanted an immersion camp for these seminarians and these college students. So we just volunteers from all over, a lot of them from United States and Canada. I think most of us were US and Canada. Flew into Ukraine by myself. That was interesting. And went to Ukraine, kind of just tried to honestly forget about the teaching thing, because it was just scaring me. So I forgot about it, because I was in Ukraine and I was teaching English, and it was beautiful and wonderful, and love Byzantine, love the Eastern Catholicism, love it. And then, so I started praying about it again as I was going home, and all signs obviously were pointing to, yes, of course you're going to do this. So I called the principal when I got back, because he was amazing. And he said, I will wait for you to get back from Ukraine. He's probably already thinking like, what? Who did I just ask to do this? I got back and told him that I would love to take this job. And in about just a matter of a couple weeks, I entered into the most beautiful job mission that I will ever dream of. I was at St. George School teaching 7th and 8th grade for 10 beautiful years, and it was amazing. It was so blessed. I can't even tell you. And I immersed myself in that job, in my students, so many beautiful encounters and memories and learning and laughs and music and dancing and volunteering, all the things, all of the things. It was fantastic. So that was great. Top of my game in 2017, I guess? Yeah, 2017. Maybe 2016, I started to kind of feel an itch. It was kind of like, this is great and I love it so much, but I'm starting to just feel this itch and it's hard to describe. It was just kind of inside, like, might be some time for something new. And, you know, prayed about that over the year. And then come the end of the year, there was a whole turnover, as a lot of people would remember, you'd remember, with the Catholic schools.
Okay.
And I had already really been praying about this and really discerning what I was going to do, because I really truly felt like the Holy Spirit wanted me to do something else, wanted me to leave, which was, Susan, it was crazy because I loved this. I always say I would teach through the summer if they let me.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved it. It was my life. It was my weekends. It was my evenings. It was my early mornings. But I just felt like the Holy Spirit was just saying it's time for something new. And that ended up coinciding with all of the Catholic school teachers having to reapply for their jobs because things were being restructured differently. And which was kind of an interesting way of the Holy Spirit solidifying, like, yeah, because it wasn't just, I'm going to passively move into the next year because I'm chicken and I don't know where I'm going. It was, I had to really actively continue that job. So if I'm explaining that it makes sense, it was a very interesting transition. It was kind of given to me.
So I just want to clarify, when you say actively continue that job, you mean like if you were to continue teaching 7th and 8th graders religion, you would have had to
reapply.
Explain a little bit. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was, it just so happened that was kind of, I don't want to say the perfect storm because I'm not putting anything negative on it, but it was kind of that perfect scenario of, like, yes, it is time for you to make that step and figure out what the Holy Spirit's doing.
Sure.
So I freaked out internally. I knew I was
Naturally.
doing this. Oh my goodness. I knew this was happening. I had no idea how I was going to leave my students, my babies. Oh my gosh. I had no idea how I was going to leave this life. And I, most importantly, had absolutely no idea what was next. I felt that it was going to be mission work because I had gotten into the habit that, because when you're a teacher, you have summers available. So I have just a passion for volunteering and love Latin America. So for many of those years, I would go for a volunteer trip somewhere in Latin America. I've been to Argentina, and Ecuador, and Peru, and Guatemala, and Bolivia, and Costa Rica, and Dominican a couple times, and Mexico, and Chile. And I'm probably forgetting some, but each year I'd go to a different place and I would find a volunteer position and I would do that. And I love it. I love Latin America. And I loved the volunteering. So I felt like, well, that's got to be where the Holy Spirit's leading, because I'm just feeling like black. I have no idea. There's no screen on. It's a black screen. So I know that I love that. So I feel like I'm probably going to go do some mission work. And at the time I was single for a long time. I was independent. And so it kind of all made sense. So spoke to the people at the school, spoke to my dear friends of the diocese, and everybody was very shocked. Spoke to my family. Everyone's shocked because they're like,
Right.
how is this possible? And so
Because
that
you have
wasn't,
loved your job,
oh,
right? I mean, they knew your passion for teaching. Yeah.
yes. And not just
And just,
loved it, but just
yeah,
identified so
right.
much with it. I let it
Yeah.
consume me in the best of ways. I loved it. And so everybody's like, are you okay? Are you going to be okay? And I'm like, I really feel the Holy Spirit is guiding this. So I have to go with that. Emotionally, am I going to be okay when I have to leave this classroom that's been like my second home for 10 years? No, that's not going to be okay. And there were moments where it was not okay, but it was okay.
Sure.
Um, so it was, I'd kind of made those announcements to the people I needed to towards the end of the school year. So it's May. And I end up going to, I can take a little time here, right? This
Oh,
is a,
yes, please do.
okay. So Padre Pio's, he's my guy. He's my saint. I don't know how it happened, but I always will tell my students, like, when you are choosing a saint, you're not choosing your saint. They're choosing you. They're revealing that they have chosen you. And I absolutely super firmly believe that. And I know that with Padre Pio for, whatever reason he's chosen me. I pretend I've chosen him. He lets me think that. Um, but I love him and I love him to death. And he's really been a strong guiding light for me. And it was May, and time is creeping on, and I'm scared, and I have no idea what's going on, and I'm praying. And it just so happened that all of a sudden there was this announcement that his relics were going to be in Pittsburgh.
Oh, gosh.
And so cool, right? And
Yes.
I believe that was May 17th. And the funny thing about this was I had been preparing. There were Franciscans that I was having come in. They were out of town. I was having them come in to speak to my 7th and 8th graders. And I had just been, just getting everybody so hyped about this. Mainly I was hyped, but my students really, they played along with me so well. God bless them. But they were somewhat hyped as well.
Sure, your excitement was contagious. I mean, yeah. Well,
And
they're seeing it through your eyes too. I'm sure that was the beauty of
yeah.
just you bringing your passion to what you were doing,
Oh,
is
absolutely.
sharing your excitement about this.
Yeah. And so they're like, oh my goodness, we're going to meet like real Franciscans, blah, blah, blah. And they, like I said, they were coming out of town. And it was that day. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what is happening? So do I take off of work? I really didn't often take off. I hated taking off. And I'm like, I have to. Like, this is his relics. I'm in this crisis of where am I going?
Right.
I need pops to tell me what we're doing, you know? So it was funny. I messaged them and I said, so we're still really excited. It was email because, of course, he didn't text or anything. And I said, we're really, really excited to have you. We've been keeping contact. And I said, it just so happens that that day I'm not going to be there. And here's
Mm.
why, if you heard. And it was funny because he emailed back and said, we heard about the relics traveling and we got permission. They got permission from their order to go after they came to Erie. They were going down to Pittsburgh to see the relics as well. So cool, right? So
Right?
that worked. Yes, that worked out really well. So I had my day, I had my retreat discernment day in Pittsburgh to go see the relics. And it was very emotional, much more emotional actually than I had anticipated being there. I'm sure all the people are like, why is that chick, I had like my little earbuds in and I'm bawling. Like, why is
Sure.
she bawling by herself? And people are there and, all these wonderful Catholics and they're chatting and showing each other prayer cards. And I'm like, don't talk to me. Yeah,
Right.
I'm not a terribly emotional, like cry person, but man, did it come that day. So I'm in the cathedral there and go up. And so my point was, give me some light here. Give me some direction. And so my question was, Padre Pio, what what am I doing? What's my direction? Please help me to see what I'm doing. And I got up to the relics, and it was his gloves, behind the glass. If anybody's ever been able to visit relics, you can walk up, and his two fingerless gloves were, I think maybe one glove was in there, and it was behind a little glass, and you could go up and take a moment with it and touch the glass. And it was just amazing and wonderful. And I'm crying and I'm praying, and I go back to my seat. And my prayer was, please reveal to me what my direction is, because it's time, when we like to tell heaven and all of our, our Lord and our saints that it's time. I need to know right now.
Sure.
And the answer was it was very Padre Pio. The answer was, let me gather myself to say this right. It is more important to have faith than to have knowledge. Meaning, and I got it clear. I heard it clearly, not in like his voice or anything. Just if you've had those inspirations, it's just right there planted in your heart. Meaning, you need to just keep trusting. You're looking for the answer, but right now you just need to trust. It's more important to have faith than the knowledge. And I wanted the knowledge, Susan. I really wanted the knowledge. I wanted to know dates and applications and a country and what
I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah. So such a cool, funny, silly, amazing, emotional trip. While the Franciscans were in my world, speaking to my students, which went really well, by the way.
So they were there without you while you were in Pittsburgh.
100%. They still
and then they came to Pittsburgh after.
Yes. The thing I was so excited about. Yes. And I left everybody. It was just it was interesting how that all went down. So I'm still not back to the drawing board. But, sitting in my seat as a pupil, I guess, staring at a blank drawing board.
Sure.
So, what happened was in 7th and 8th grade at that time, our students had to do a number of service hours. And I was really, really big on that. And I loved making volunteer trips and opportunities for them. And we just did a bunch of things with refugees and people with special needs and just all these neat things we did. And I was pretty clear to them that I didn't consider prayer time as volunteer time. Prayer time is prayer time. Volunteer time is different. However, as we had talked about earlier, Father Michael Polinek was at the cathedral at the time, and he was hosting a holy hour for vocations. And I believe it was a Thursday. And I would announce certain announcements I would tell to all my classes. So the 3 7th grade classes I told, 3 8th grade classes I told. And I said, you all know that I do not give service hours for prayer. However, for my friend Polinek, Father Polinek, I want to promote this. And so you can get 1 hour of service for going to this. Now, I would always mention stuff like that to them. And very, very, very few times would they pick up on that. And that's okay. But I did have one student, and he was an 8th grader. And he actually came up to me surprisingly and said, well, it was also the end of the term and the end of the year, and he still needed service hours. So he said, I would like to go to that holy hour for vocations. And he was asking me, he said, who should I get to sign my paper? And we dealt with that. But I'm going to scandalize everybody right now. When he told me that, I'm like, crap, that means I have to go too. Okay, not that I don't love holy hour, but it was at like 7 o'clock in the evening, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew I was going to go to the cathedral. I was going to go there. I was going to fall asleep. I knew I was going to fall asleep. And so I was like, all right, but how can I not go, right? And I know definitively my student is going. Plus, I kind of had an inkling that the student might have a vocation to the priesthood. So I'm like, I really have to go. Yeah, he didn't, but that's okay. So I'm going to this holy hour. Great fun. We go to the cathedral and we're saying the rosary. We are in adoration. We're doing all the beautiful things that we do. I believe we were saying the rosary. And just as expected, guess what I started to do? I started to fall asleep, of course. And so it was in that phase that you get into when you're praying and you're falling asleep, not really sure where your consciousness is at that moment. You're definitely not awake though. Okay. And you have kind of like, you're almost starting to get immersed in dreams and for vocations, right? We're praying for. And all of a sudden, it was there, clear as day, woke me right up. EMT. I was absolutely out of the blue. This did not come from me at all.
So you hadn't even been contemplating?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Not even a little tiny itty bitty bit. Just bam, in that moment of, holding on to my rosary, probably almost falling out of my hands, sleep, prayer, holy hour vocations. It was just there. End of May. It was just there. It was EMT. And it was so otherly that, like I said, it startled me like awake. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like sitting there just reflecting on this. Like, this is brand new news to me, almost like somebody had walked up and said it. And that's how unexpected this was. And in retrospect, after that, I was thinking that many, many years prior, I had wanted to be an EMT. I didn't even know what it meant. And I don't even know where that came from, where I had learned about what EMS was. But I think it was early in college. So this was probably 15 years prior, right? And I had been dating a fella at the time, and I had told him, like, I want to be an EMT. And I remember him saying, oh, you're already, doing this and that, and you're so busy, you'd have to get up in the middle of the night. That's not you. And it's not. I'm a sleep sloth. I love my sleep. I'm way too attached to my sleep. St. Benedict in his order, one of the rules of the Benedictines is like not to love sleep so much. I read that once and I'm like, oh gosh, that's me. But point being, I had agreed with him and I don't recall ever thinking about it again. Never. But fascinating that there was a seed there, that at one point I had expressed this enough that I had mentioned it to somebody else, and him saying, oh, you'd have to get up in the middle of the night. I'm like, oh, yuck. I don't want that. And I didn't even know what EMS was. I didn't know what an EMT was. And here I am, fast forward maybe 15 years later, without even having ever considered it again, in the middle of this holy hour, 4 vocations, in some sleep zone. And it just came to me, EMT, and startled me awake. And the next morning, literally during my plan period, I am frantically looking up because I'm feeling this now. Like, it's like, sure. Oh my gosh, like, this is it. I have a path. I think I have a path. And so I think I love this.
For those that aren't familiar, EMT, EMS, do you mind?
Yeah, no, of course. So emergency medical services is EMS. Okay. And an EMT is an emergency medical technician. It also oftentimes is referred to as paramedics. The names are interchangeable to kind of the layperson. There's a distinction that we won't go into here, but basically it's ambulance work. It's you through a fire department or like a nonprofit ambulance company. You go on emergency calls, you get trained, you get certified, and you jump on an ambulance, and that's your work. And
you had never been in a medical field before this?
Oh gosh, no, no. So far from it. I was the person that didn't know whether to take aspirin or Tylenol at, 30 years old or whatever I was. Sure. I mean, nothing medical, absolutely not. I know no EMTs,
Right.
paramedics. I know one firefighter, but that's it. This is
So nobody
complete.
in the family. That's so
No,
interesting.
absolutely not. Nope. So the next morning I'm frantically looking and I'm sending emails and making phone calls because like I said, like I think I have a direction.
Mm,
And I found a hybrid course through Butler, I'm sorry, through IUP.
mm,
So Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And it's hybrid, so I can start it online. I think I started in June. So it was like that day I was signed up for this course. Like within 24 hours, I went from I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm leaving this classroom and my heart's broken and I'm lost and I'm worried, but I'm being faithful. And Padre Pio is telling me, don't worry about the fact that you don't know anything, just have faith. Um, and within 24 hours, I'm signed up for a class that's going to change the entire trajectory of my life, of my social circle, of my thinking, of my skills, of my day to day. So I closed the chapter of St. George, and that was so rough, so rough. And people are like, how are you doing this? And I just remember telling people this was at this point, this was going on 8 years ago now. Um, yeah, 8 years ago. And I told people over and over, if I weren't sure that this were the Holy Spirit guiding me, I would never be able to go through with this. It would
mm,
destroy me. It would have just destroyed my heart to leave everything that I love and my students and my classroom and
mm.
everything. My 38 plants hanging in my room, my pictures of birds all over the wall. I mean, my discussions about everything and anything religion related and
Mm.
society related and my rats that I brought, and they were in the classroom with me all the time, and my students would pass them around because they're just class pets. I mean, they were my pets, but just all of the crazy, funky things that Miss Lafaro's classroom encompassed. It was just my world. But I kept saying, if I weren't sure that the Holy Spirit were leading this, I would be devastated. I wouldn't be able to do it. But I just know, I know. And if I hadn't known, certainly that holy hour, I mean, there was no explaining that whatsoever. And I
Mm.
don't, certainly don't ever tell people to expect
Right.
gifts. Isn't that phenomenal? They loved him.
Awesome.
I know.
Oh.
So my rats they were such good therapy animals. We would just pass them around, and there were students that didn't like school and they didn't want to be social, and they would come and they would hang out with, that was my Jasper. They would hang out with him and he would just be their little best friend. And it was
Mm.
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. Stuff you really only see in a Catholic school, you know?
Yeah.
So, um, so I jumped into the world of EMS and it was scary as hell. It was terrifying. My learning curve, Susan, was ridiculous. Like you're saying, you weren't in the no medical, nothing. I had never taken a blood pressure ever. I was in a hybrid class
Wow.
with there was 31 of us, and there was probably one other guy that was left field, like I was. I think he was a librarian, and everybody else was like, "Oh, I work in an ER," and "Oh, we're all in fire departments, so we already run kind of emergency calls," or I'm a tech in this medical office, whatever. And I'm like, I
Right.
teach religion. I got rats. Want to
Were
hear
they
about
welcoming to you? What was that like? Was
it?
that sort of a
It wasn't, oh gosh, I think I didn't even care. I was just so overwhelmed. And it was a hybrid class, so mainly it
Mhm.
was online. But I
Okay.
spent every weekend, or I'm sorry, I spent a weekend a month there, which was physically terrible because I was bartending. I was a bartender for 8.5 years. Loved it.
Okay.
Um, and so I'd be bartending like a complete moron until late on a Friday. And then I'd
Okay.
jump up early on Saturday and drive down to Indiana, Pennsylvania, and then
Hmm.
be trying to force
It's
all
like a
of
3-hour drive, isn't it?
it was crazy. Yeah. And
Hmm.
it was a bit less, but it was
Okay.
a lot, and trying to force all of this completely foreign information into my head. And it was so humbling and so frustrating and so much. Um,
Did you ever have a crisis of, I made the wrong decision, or what am I doing? I mean, or because you had that moment, that absolute, I know
100%.
what I know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So never look
100%.
back. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. And even like the test you have to take to become an EMT, there's the class test, but then there's
Okay.
what's called a national registry test. And that's, basically what you need to join EMS. And it's a terrible test. It's notoriously awful. I actually teach EMTs now on occasion, and I tell them straight up, this test is a nightmare, and I'm sorry. And you just have to get through it. So I was really like, Lord, this is in your hands, man, because this was your idea. So you got to get me to pass this test. And
Mhm.
thankfully I had quite a bit of, you know, studying and book writing and note taking
From your years in
experience.
school. Right. Right.
Yeah. So that
University
part,
and
yeah, and test taking. But this was a whole new ball game. But I passed, and I passed on the first try. Um, and then it was like time to get the job. So still
mm,
praying about all this. Um, and I applied to some of the organizations around here, and I got the job at Emergicare, Care, my company I've been with now almost 8 years, and I love it there. And but that's really kind of when the hard part begins, because I knew nothing. I
mm.
just you can pass a test, but then being on an ambulance and walking into people's houses and, walking into a nursing home to find, an 89-year-old female with, blood coming down her cheek on her bathroom floor and the tile, like there's two different things here. There's book learning and then there's that. And it was tough. That was hard. That was a very, very difficult time in my life. Um,
Transitioning from the schooling into the actual,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
profession. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and God bless her. I had a partner that was very difficult. She was
Um,
very challenging, and she was very negative, and she was very critical. And
mm,
we are friends. Um,
mhm.
but it was rough. It was so
Sure.
bad because I was so, like I already said to you, like I get chicken with new things. I mean, I like to be over prepared before I jump into something.
Right.
And there's really no real preparation for this other than just starting to do it.
Hmm.
So it was very difficult. I made so many mistakes. It was so humbling. I would just be so disheartened at the end of the day because I ended up taking tallies of how many dumb mistakes I was doing. Just stupid things. I didn't realize that French Street was one way once we got down here. So I had to go around a block another time, and, or throwing the linen into the garbage can instead of the linen can. It just stupid stuff. But when you're new like that and you're with somebody who's pretty critical anyway, you're
Mm.
counting. You're like, oh, those 11 things I did today. This is ridiculous.
Oh.
And it was like, it didn't matter that I had been top of my game at St. George. It didn't matter that I had this wonderful rapport with all these beautiful young people. It didn't matter that we did fun volunteer work. It didn't matter that my students, knew Pope Benedict's German name. That didn't matter. I was on an ambulance and I
Yeah.
was screwing stupid things up. I
You're
was throwing
starting
out,
all over. Yeah.
which
Starting all over.
yeah, which
That
was
takes
so
courage.
good for me. Oh, so much
Mm.
courage and so much,
Yeah.
so humbling. I know I keep saying that, but it is so humbling. Um,
Marielle, can I ask a quick question?
of
So,
course.
because you felt that itch, you
Mhm.
knew something was maybe brewing, You have
Mhm.
this completely different profession pop up that you had never even considered, but you're going on faith that this is God calling you into this. Was there a moment when you were on the job, or I would imagine multiple moments, but anything that you can call to mind, sorry to put you on the spot,
No, of course.
that validated this is why. And you just knew, like, okay, now I get it, God.
Um, I would just have to say all the time,
Wow.
honestly, all the time, including, yesterday. It all the time. It was my patient interactions. I just have been so blessed with beautiful, wonderful patient interactions. And um, I knew from those, I knew that this was what I was supposed to be doing, even though it was hard. I knew it was making me grow, but it's been those patient interactions through and through. Um, Not exclusively the Catholic patients, but particularly the Catholic patients, if that makes sense.
Can
Because
you say a little bit more about that?
yeah, um, it's, there's a certain really cool bond there. And most of them at this point are older, because most people who really identify with their Catholicism at this point, they're not your 20 or 30-year olds. Um, there's a really sacred bond when I walk into a house, and I'm comfortable enough in my job that I'm not. In the beginning, I was overwhelmed. I'd walk into a house and there's so much stimulation. You don't know what to focus on. Somebody's on the floor, or they're vomiting or something, and you're like, ah. um, I'm familiar enough with it that I walk in and my eyes I'm not even consciously, but my eyes will find Catholic things. I'll find a statue of the Blessed Mother. I'll find a crucifix. I'll find a bulletin from St. Patrick's. I find those things, and there's this little like ding, 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 so we deal with the matter at hand, of course, that first. But, in the middle of it, I can be like, oh, you go to St. Patrick's, and it's really special, especially for people who are in a moment that they don't like. They're in pain or they're scared. And then, having somebody there that's able to be like, I love your statue of Saint Joseph. Tell me about it, as we're carrying them out on a stretcher, to the hospital.
And
Appropriately,
will
of
they,
course. What's that?
if they're able to vocalize that, will they share with you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they love it. Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, it's hard I guess it's hard to give you the full picture. A lot of what we do in EMS is not as urgent as you would think. It's
Okay.
not, yes, people get kind of this idea of EMS that like you're dealing with, choking victims endlessly, or people that are, who just lost limbs all the time, every day. It's not. It's absolutely not that. There's a lot of, I don't want to use the word mundane,
Mhm.
but there's kind of just a lot of everyday 63-year-old abdominal pain, 88-year-old, what we call altered mental status. Maybe they have a UTI, so they've got some confusion going on. Lots of, difficulty breathing, which isn't like horrible difficulty breathing. It's just maybe some low oxygen saturation. They need a breathing treatment, and then all as well. So it's a lot. Most of our calls are less intense than you would think. So
Okay.
yes, we absolutely have that opportunity to chat when it's appropriate. Of course, we take
Mhm.
care of business first, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm not going to start talking about Pope Leo with somebody who can't breathe or who's having a diabetic crisis. Like, let's get our blood sugar up and then we'll talk about Leo. you know? But I
Yeah.
can usually manage to get him in.
Yeah.
So, and
Now,
they
have
do.
you,
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
no, patients, yeah. The patients that, if they're devout enough to have the Blessed Mary up or statue of Saint Joseph, they're all about talking about it. And we just
Mm.
like to, talk about our pastors and, this church and that church. And, sometimes I'll be able to tell them like, oh, did you know it's Mother Teresa's feast day today? Because I like to follow the feast days. And the Catholics, the devoted Catholics, they appreciate it. And it's beautiful.
Oh,
And it's not something, I love my coworkers, but very, very few of them um, are really devoutly Catholic. So it's something that I have the blessing of being able to share with these people that it would never even be recognized by
mhm.
EMS personnel. They wouldn't notice a statue of Mary. If ever they noticed, they wouldn't say anything about it. But
Yeah.
for somebody with a statue of the Blessed Mother in their bedroom, bringing that up as appropriately is exactly what they want. You
Yeah.
know, that's
So I
what
have
they
to
want their
ask.
ambulance ride to be. Let's
Sure.
talk about Mary and talk about, Mass last Sunday and talk about, where you got your kids baptized and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Have you had moments with your colleagues that maybe they don't get it? Like, and even for anybody who's watching, who might, I just had my daughter tell me, somebody was saying to her, I don't fully get it. I don't understand why you Catholics worship Mary. Why do you have like, what are those conversations like? Do you mind explaining that a little bit for anybody that
Yeah.
is feeling that way, watching this, going, what the heck?
Right. Yeah. Um, so as far as my coworkers go, it's it's very it's a very particular situation for me because I'm so blessed. We get along so well. I have wonderful coworkers and we just get along wonderfully and God bless them. They've just embraced the crazy that is this, including the Catholicism. I really even if I know their positions, atheist or um arguably sometimes non-Catholic Christians are have a harder time with Catholicism than an atheist would, So
Right.
some of my non-Catholic Christian coworkers, I would expect maybe to have more objections about my faith than some of my atheist coworkers. But really, they're
Mhm.
so good, and I think I'm just blessed that I think they just know where I'm coming from. They even if they're like, she's crazy, or I don't believe this insanity. They still just are very respectful. So I've
Mhm.
never, thankfully, I've never really been challenged
Mhm.
by any of them. We'll chat about it, and even some of my Catholic coworkers who are not as involved in the church, we'll chat about it, and they like learning about it. They're like, I had no idea about this or that. I have one beautiful young coworker, and she wants to become a Christian. And she has asked me, we've been, throughout the year, she's asked me, like, can you tell me more? Can you tell me about Christianity? Talk about a whirlwind. Uh, Here's
Yeah.
Christianity in an hour and 90 minutes from, you know, driving back from Pittsburgh and on emergency transport back to Erie. And you're just going to get pounded with this, succinct. Here's Christianity. Like, how do you answer that in 90 minutes? I feel like I did an okay job, but I mean, it's
Well, I
exhausting.
mean, I would imagine most EMTs aren't used to having as their colleague a former religion teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, not even close. It's
Yeah.
rare, man. It's
I
rare.
gotta say, well, and I'm hearing a common denominator, just even what you're talking about with being a teacher. And you mentioned the therapy rats, that some of these kids maybe aren't as social or
Yeah.
maybe aren't, struggle with being in school. So you have that opportunity to really impact their lives on a one-on-one level. And it's the same, that's what I'm hearing you say, these interactions that you
Oh,
mentioned.
yeah.
It's the same when you're, I would imagine, when you're coming to help a patient, there's that one-on-one, I mean, and is
Yeah.
that something that you've always felt called to, those really personal interactions rather than kind of that mass evangelization approach? Or this seems like that's where God has been moving you
Yeah, I
throughout your
suppose
life?
so. Yeah, I've never really thought about it, but yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
I've been I've been blessed. I don't claim this for myself, but I really have. The Lord has given me a passion to know people you know,
Mhm, mhm.
so which really, really lends itself super well in my job. Um, just as, especially, we do a lot of, I made a comment earlier about a non-emergency transport. And with my company, we do that all the time. We have people that need to go to Pittsburgh for a doctor's appointment, or we have people that are in a nursing home here or at a hospital here, but they're from Bradford because they got
Mhm.
helicopter life flighted into Hammond. I mean, this endless patients need to be moved from, Erie to a couple hours away.
Okay.
And a lot of my coworkers will, just make sure they're stable and do their charting and not necessarily converse a lot. That's not me. We're talking, man. I'm sitting right next to you. And I love to end that 2-hour trip with knowing all their pet names and where they
Yeah.
got married and their fears in life, all the stuff, their hobbies. So yeah, so I suppose the Lord definitely is using that in that
Yeah.
way in me. Um, yeah.
Well, I mean, we often hear we are the Lord's hands and his feet, but it's sometimes maybe a rare calling that we are his mouth as well. And to get
Yeah.
to know them in that way that you said, to be able to share certain sides of him. And like you said, to get to know them, it's to be fully known and fully loved. That is what will open a heart. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me to listen to the way that you've been called.
Oh, it's crazy,
And
isn't it?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if I'd say crazy.
I
I
do.
find it incredibly courageous and brave to be able to hear that call and actually act on it. That's a lot of people will hear it. And even that's part of, I think, my kind of private mission in what I'm doing with this podcast is to
Mm,
let people know that, first of all, these gifts that we've been given have been entrusted to us. God is
mm,
trusting us with what he has given us because he meant for it to be in the world. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being so
mm,
brave to do that, because you lending to the world what you've been given is so needed. And just,
mm.
I'm again thankful that you're being willing to share your story. And we're not done yet. I'm excited to hear where you're kind of moving. You mentioned that you've got some other things coming up for
Yeah.
yourself as well. But I wanted to ask if you could maybe speak to, you've mentioned a couple times the chicken, being a chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, it's that self-doubt that can often derail us when we feel like I don't have what it takes, or no way, because we see somebody that's in a job or maybe doing something that we might have that sort of interest in, but we can't see ourselves fully developed in that way. And it's taking
Oh,
those
yeah.
steps to move in that direction. Can you speak a little bit about that and how you dealt with that self doubt, but moved forward anyway?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I'm a huge proponent of career changes.
Mm,
I love, there's a certain animation that happens in me when somebody talks about doing something really different.
mm,
Because I went through it, and because um even going into teaching, like I
mm,
kind of intimated before, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't thinking I was going to be a teacher when I went on that retreat and got that message. Like, if this had been kind of just like a dialogue with a friend, I would have been like, no, not me, next, but it's a little different when it's Jesus. Yeah, you're only going to get so far with saying next. Um, it is, it there were so many moments. I know I said this so many times that it was just humbling. And I would look at the other people, I would look at the other EMS providers, and I was just scared. I was shaking inside. And like you're saying, I'd look at that and be like, how can I just be that? How can I just be natural? How can I be more relaxed? How can I be less freaked out about this whole thing? And I just really had to keep praying about it and keep going back to the fact that I knew that this was my path. in that he wouldn't have put me here. He would not have put me here if he didn't, he wasn't going to equip me for this. And I guess I would challenge that a little bit and say, and if he decided not to, then that was going to be part of my path as well. If this ended up being a failure, it wasn't a capital F failure. It was, I guess, a building or learning block to something else. But that's obviously not the way it happened. But really, the courage, and it is courage, the courage to get uncomfortable. It's scary, but it is so worth it because you see so many people with talents and promise and who aren't necessarily thriving where they are because they're comfortable and because they don't want to go out into the deep. They don't want to swim any deeper than they already are because they don't know what's in the water, and it's scary. And but that's what life is. I mean, like the second career stuff, learn so much. I think especially with careers, we get ourselves very boxed in, you know, that and our careers in a lot of ways shape our entire framework of life, do they not? They shape what you think about, they shape your daily activities, they shape your perspectives, your experiences. So when you break out of one completely career and just jump into another one, it literally changes your whole world. Going from a Catholic school environment to an environment with EMS personnel. They're quirky people. I love them to death, but these are human beings that have signed up to go to the car wrecks and go to the cardiac arrests and deal with, you know, getting people out of bed bug infested houses who've been septic for 2 days. You know, like it's a whole different demographic of people. And it has opened my world and my eyes and my heart in such incredible ways I never would have gotten in the Catholic school. And please, that is not to say that my Catholic school wasn't amazing. My Catholic school was amazing. My people were amazing. My principal, my teachers, my students, the parents, everybody, our priests, everybody was great and amazing. And that was a beautiful community. But this is a beautiful community too. And it's people it's a whole world experience. It's a life I would never have known had I been scared and had I thought that this was just up to me. Had I boxed myself in that these are Marielle's talents, this is Marielle's experience, this is Marielle's trajectory, and that's where we're going to stay. And God's like, no. We don't do that. God doesn't believe in boxes, you know?
Right.
So yeah. So I just knew that I've known that I just have to let him guide it. I have to let him guide it. And when I have those moments of doubt, I just really, it's doubt in me more than doubt in him. You know, thankfully for me, it's been that. And there's of course going to be an overlap. Certainly people could translate the doubt in themselves into doubt in God, and that's okay. I mean, we all have doubts, but really it takes courage, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. Sounds incredibly rewarding. I would offer another, I don't know if you've picked up on this. You've mentioned how you had this enormous passion for teaching and your students and now your patients. And I don't really even know quite the question I want to ask. I'm sensing something about it in a sense that there are many people who are in their field and maybe don't have that all-consuming passion or just kind of floating by. But it seems like maybe you've gotten so much from it and been able to give so much because you have poured so much of yourself into what you're being called to do in that moment. And I would think that that would be a different experience from somebody who is maybe been a teacher for decades on end and is kind of like the flame isn't being lit in the same way,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you had. Well, maybe not, I don't know, but over 10 years you had to have had maybe a few days or not that you didn't feel that
I
fire.
I'm sure there was. Sometimes I try to think about that and I don't remember those days.
Okay.
I really don't. Just because as a whole, it was so incredible and so beautiful that I think, I don't know if my memory just selectively eliminates those memories. I know there was hard times for sure. And I'm sure there was tedium involved. And if I
Mm.
thought hard enough, or had some special prompts from some coworkers, hey, remember you hated such and such, then I'm sure it would come back very easily. But I happened to just, it was my students. It was just the love for these young people, just love,
Yeah.
love, love for them you know that kind of kept that flame going, I guess. And I guess it's now just
Mhm.
love for patients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also when you were called to these things both times, just for that part of your story, both times you had that unwavering faith or just that inner sense in you that this is what I'm being called to do. And it seems like maybe that even gave you some of that fire, whether it was
Yeah.
battling the tedium, which it doesn't sound like maybe that was necessarily a struggle for you, but just knowing that this is where I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
big part of that answer for you.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell
Absolutely.
you're moving it now again and with more education. Is that what I heard you
Yeah.
say a little
Yeah.
bit?
So probably a couple of years ago, um, I started to feel that itch again.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, the first
Is
time
it an
it's hard.
unease for maybe people
Not
that can't relate?
not an unease in a bad way. Just
Hmm.
kind of like when you're sitting too long and you're like, I gotta move. It's not that it
Ah,
hurts. Your body's like prompting you to move. It's
right.
that, but it's just kind of your soul. It's
Okay.
like there's something bubbling. I want to go try something else. I want a new door. I want to look in a different door, and I don't know what door it is.
Mm,
Um, and
curiosity in a way.
yeah, yeah. So I ended up a few years ago. Um, I went to college for so long and then, did the EMS thing in the middle of being an EMS, not even in the middle, towards the beginning. I then went for a higher certification, which is called an advanced EMT, which I won't go into, but it's in between EMT, advanced EMT, paramedic. So I'd have more
Um,
skills, more learning, more responsibility. And I did it not for more skills in the least because I was chicken still, but I did it because I felt like my learning curve had been way too steep. And I was still in that, like, I spent a lot of time in the I'm not good at this. I'm the newbie, I'm not good at this phase of being an EMS. And I thought becoming an advanced EMT would help me to learn, to kind of fill in those cracks and understand better what it seemed like everybody else was understanding about, disease and illness and whatever. Well, kind of foolishly, because I, how can an educated person not put it together that this then would come with more responsibility, which I realized halfway into the class that, like, okay, now we're going to work on our new skills. And I'm like, crap, what? Like, now I'm going to be a higher level. Now there's going to be more pressure on me to perform more things and be more responsible. But regardless, so I had done that, but I had been away from schooling for a bit. So I started to get an itch that I wanted to do something new and I wanted more education. So I prayed a lot about it and I'm like, I think I want to get my master's degree. And what's the topic that I love? Of course, is theology, because you can't, learning about God and learning about religion and faith is never a waste. It's an end in itself. Absolutely convinced. Doesn't matter what you do with it, it's the process of learning. And I missed that because I had been, and I love EMS, but I was really kind of yearning for that academia again. So I signed up to get a master's degree in theology online through St. Joseph's College in Maine. Um, very cool school, and it was totally online. So I was doing that while I was, working EMS part-time and bartending part-time. Um, so I got that, and I thought, okay, this itch, now the Lord's going to tell me like where to move with this. And he hadn't. So I've kind of been sitting on this theology degree and trying to kind of convince Jesus, like, hey, timeline, we got the cert. We got, we're good to move now and like do something. And he was quiet. And sometimes that just happens and it's not your own timeline. So fast forward until earlier this year. So I got my degree sometime like early last year. So it's been at least a year since I've just kind of been sitting on this theology degree, not knowing what to do. I've kind of been discerning, just praying about it, figuring it out. Where does my heart want to go? Where's the Holy Spirit leading? And really kind of it's not nearly as dramatically, but kind of pointing me into a chaplaincy position, which, again, would bring me back to still, talking to people about their faith and having those one-to-one conversations. And I'm thinking that I really like hospice. So in EMS, one of our great, great, great blessings is we get to bring people home who are going from the hospital, going home on hospice. And it's their last car ride. And it's such a tremendous honor to be able to bring somebody on their last vehicle ride. And of course, arguably most of those people are not real conscious of a lot at that point, but some of them are. And it's amazing. And it's very emotional for family usually because you're bringing them in and there's a new hospital bed in the house and, there's a hospice nurse that's going to be there and, they're probably sometimes they're on oxygen, stuff like that. And, but through the experience of dealing with that, I've kind of realized that I think I would like to deal with hospice more. And so there is chaplaincy with hospice. So I found a program earlier this year, prayed about it, did some searching, talked to a friend of mine who is a hospice chaplain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she's given me some really great guidance about that. And she kind of led me to this program about basically getting, like I said, the CPE certification. So getting some credits of education that prepare you to be a chaplain. Now, so I've been doing this for a couple months now. Yeah, we're 10 weeks into it, into this first unit. And it's been interesting because I've realized throughout this experience that, there is chaplaincy also. There's a huge need for chaplaincy for first responders. And I chatted with a guy who's a teacher for the school that I'm taking this through in the very beginning. And he said, I know that you're kind of focused on the hospice thing. He said, but what you have in your background is very unique. You want to be a chaplain. You are a first responder. That to have a chaplain to first responders who is a first responder is kind of an uncommon combination. Usually the first responder people aren't interested in chaplaincy. And chaplaincy people, isn't it interesting? So I've kind of been focused on that as well. So right now my door's open. I know I'm getting these credits. Okay. And I do feel strongly that the Holy Spirit has led that, but I am in the doorway. I'm not trying to move. Okay. He's going to move. I don't know where this is going. I have a couple clues and I have a couple guesses, but I'm not even going to state them because I don't know. Is it I really don't know. But the beautiful thing is at this point in my life, like being able to let the Holy Spirit make decisions is so liberating. It's so liberating. It's just so wonderful because it's going to be the right thing. It's going to give to the world. It's going to give to you. It's going to be smoother than whatever I'm going to choose. That Marielle chooses by herself is that's rocky. It's just always really, really rocky.
Can you um can you give us a little bit more of an understanding what a chaplain does? What is when you say the duties like
Absolutely.
with chaplaincy and
Right. Yeah. So chaplaincy is essentially, it's going to be meeting with somebody one-on-one, and walking them through whatever they need to talk about. Generally, it's spiritual. Chaplaincy is very much associated with faith, but not a particular faith. It's not necessarily a Christian faith. It's not necessarily faith of a different religion. It could just be, generic questions of, my path, higher power kind of thing. Obviously, my passion is Christianity, um, but I would love to walk with anybody through that process of just trying to find out what they believe and what is guiding them. And so chaplaincy, you can have chaplains, oftentimes you hear about them in hospice. You hear about a chaplain in a hospital to go around and meet the needs of whoever might be sick, and seeking somebody. Chaplains are seen to just be kind of a spiritual figure. So somebody, in the hospital who is sick or dying or lonely, they might request a chaplain. So you would go there and just talk to them about their spiritual needs, gently, of course, because everybody's going to come at this way, way different. There's prison chaplaincy, which is another thing that I think I would love to do.
interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, I've always had an interest in working in the prisons. I looked into it long ago when I was wanting to do everything in the world. Um, then realized that, yeah, what I was looking at, like being a correctional officer, like absolutely not, absolutely not cut out for that. But there's a huge need for chaplains in the prisons, and that would be really cool. I've done some prison ministry in the past.
Mhm.
Super interesting, super fulfilling. So really, as a chaplain, you can do a lot of things. There's a lot of need out there. And the educational credits I'm getting right now, at this point, they're pretty broad. So at this point in the program, it's pretty broad. So I would,
Okay.
as I go and pray about it, just kind of narrow that down.
So
Now,
is
as
that
far as,
something, oh, I apologize. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, as far as first responders go, um, EMS personnel, firefighters, even like police, there's needs there. And
Mhm.
it's a very under met demographic of need because of course, what first responders see, what they go through, what they
Right.
experience,
Mhm.
so a chaplain to them would, and there's not a lot of programs, at least not that I'm aware of, almost 8 years into this. There's nobody kind of hopping around saying like, hey, I'm gonna, go from ambulance company to ambulance company and
Sure.
see if anybody here needs a chaplain. Like it just doesn't really, especially in EMS, we're kind of they kind of boast about being kind of on the callous side. We deal with all this and blah blah blah. So
Right. Thank you
yeah.
for that explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, there's so much that you've talked about. That's fascinating. That I'm loving. That I'm sure that people are hearing about things they've never heard about from this perspective. So again, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say as we wrap things up here, I'm sure there are people that are hearing you. Maybe they have a tug on their own heart, like, oh, they they're recognizing something that you're saying. Maybe they didn't even know that that's what it was this that itch or that call or that, even just a prompt from God. Maybe they haven't recognized that that's what they're feeling. But if two questions actually. One, if they have questions, do you mind if anybody were to reach out to you,
I
maybe
would love
send,
that. I would love
okay,
that very
you wouldn't,
much.
oh, that would be
I would love
fantastic. So
it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And then secondly, if this would be the question, like if they find what they are being called to do, and then they go to research it, such as you did, and you sense that like this almost seems insurmountable. I have to go get a master's degree or go back to school. What
Uh-huh.
what encouragement could you give them when they're just sort of seeing the hill that they'd have to climb to get to what they've been or being called to do?
Yeah. Every hill is made up of steps. Just
Mm,
take the steps. Just take the steps. Don't take the hill. Even if even in the beginning of a college course, like I said, I spent enough time there looking at the syllabus the first day. Anybody that's been
mhm,
in college knows this experience. It's gross. It's
mm,
overwhelming, especially when you start a number of classes at once. You know, and over a span of 2 days, you've got four syllabi in front of you. And it's a little nauseating because there's so much, and you're like, this is going to be terrible. But you're looking at the entire challenge, the entire task at once. And that's not reflective of what your reality is going to be. It's each paper is going to get written, each lesson is going to get taught, each chapter is going to get read one at a time. And it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be one at a time. So you can't stare at the hill. You have to
mm,
just stare at the next steps that you need to take to start going up that hill. And
mm.
sometimes those first steps are the hardest. It's, you know, when you jump on your bike and those first, you know, pushes of the pedals are so hard, aren't they? But once you get that
Sure.
momentum going, even if it is on an incline, it's still easier than those first steps. So the first steps are inevitably they're going to be difficult, and you just have to focus on the steps that you have to take. Don't look at the whole syllabus, and don't
Mhm.
look at all of the syllabus to get the syllabi together next
Yeah.
to each other, because it's just insurmountable. And any of us would just, anybody, regardless of talent or experience or even faith, is going to find themselves discouraged and frightened away if we try to just take the task on all at once. It's never what we're called to do.
That's so
So,
wise. Thank you for that.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah. And you just never know what part of that will be brought out in whatever part what you're being called to on that journey. So it's all important, but you're right. Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
those first steps
grace,
are generally, yes, yes, those first steps are
grace,
the stepping out in faith. And yes,
yeah.
preach.
Yes, grace is
So needed.
everything. Grace is everything. Absolutely everything.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Marielle. This has been an absolute delight. It's been fascinating. I really appreciate your time with us here.
Oh, I
Um,
appreciate it.
thank you. Well, for those of you that have been joining us that have heard this story, if you haven't yet subscribed or heard about or been able to share about this podcast, we're just getting going. This has been a journey in itself. It's been taking the next step for myself, for our guests. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, that would certainly help us to build the momentum here. I thank you again for joining us. Again, huge thanks to Marielle for joining us, sharing her story. This has just been a wonderful episode. I can't wait to go back and listen to it all over again. There's so much that I can learn. So thank you again. It's been a
Thank
wonderful
you.
time sharing with you.
Such a blessing for me. Thank you. Thank you,
Oh,
everybody, for listening.
thanks again.
Bye.